You are part of the High-Risk United Nations Task Force, or HUNT. You've been investigating possible cult activity on an island west of Los Angeles. Suddenly your boat explodes, stranding you there. You find out that a nefarious pyrotechnics expert and the head of a major movie studio have joined forces with the Oscurito cult. Your only task now is to head into the old monastery on the island and shut the cult down for good. This outlandish and over-the-top plot was for a game that was originally slated to be a massive expansion pack for Wolfenstein 3D, but was instead released on its own in 1994. On this episode of Knee Deep in the Dead, we explore the quirky, violent shooter, Rise of the Triad, Dark Wars.
Shoot double!
Beginning its life as Rise of the Triad, Wolfenstein 3D Part 2, the game's project leader, Scott Miller, got a call from John Romero saying that the game was no longer going to be an expansion pack, since doing so might draw attention from id Software's next game release. Using an updated version of the Wolf 3D engine, the game's visuals and tone was shifted into its own project, no longer tied down by pre-existing Wolf 3D elements. Like Wolf 3D, however, Rise of the Triad takes place over a series of levels within larger episodes. To tackle these episodes, Rock gives you the choice between 5 members of the Hunt, each with different levels of speed, accuracy, and hit points. T. Barrett, Terradino Cassat, Lorelei Nee, Doug Wendt, and of course, Ian Paul Freely. You can take a wild guess as to who I played through the game as. The weapons are varied, while also managing to be extremely limited. You have 2 types of bullet weapons, the pistols and the machine gun. Thankfully, you also have unlimited ammunition for these. Your secondary weapon is one of either 6 missile weapons or 2 magic weapons. You can only carry one of these at a time, swapping it out. You get a choice of a bazooka, firebomb, heat seeker, drunk missile, flame wall, and split missile. Magic weapons don't come into play until episode 4, when you get the Excalibat, an all-powerful baseball bat, and the Dark Staff. In addition to these weapons, there are a variety of power-ups, such as God Mode, Dog Mode, yes, that is exactly what it sounds like, Mercury Mode, and power downs like Elasto and Shrooms. Without a doubt, the biggest threats in the game aren't from the numerous enemies, but the many traps and environmental hazards. The biggest enemy being moving firewalls. However, the bounce pad made some encounters and kills particularly hilarious. Anyway, the episodes play out as such. Episode 1 takes place as the Hunt approaches the monastery. You fight 3 main enemies here: the Low Guard, which are the lowest of the cannon fodder, the High Guard, which sport a machine gun, and the Over Patrol, which have a nasty habit of flinging nets at you that you need a knife to cut through. In the end, you confront General Darien, who has somehow gained the ability to teleport while apparently dreaming about stuffing you into tiny metal containers.
They'll bury you in a lunchbox.
You finally breach the monastery in episode 2, taking on 3 new enemies: the Lightning Guard, pistol-armed baddies who are capable of stealing your stuff, Strike Team members who possess the mighty power of the barrel roll, and the Triad Enforcer, who are real pains in the butt, sporting chain guns and grenades. You then face off with Sebastian Christ in his mighty Chair of Doom. Now, these first 2 episodes are fairly average in the difficulty curve, but the difficulty really ramps up in episode 3 as you descend into the caves beneath the monastery. Here you take on patrol robots which hunt by sound and have to be taken down by rockets. You'll also encounter the indestructible Ballisticraft robots who like to surprise you with rockets. After all that, you take on the NME, a fast, tough little robot who likes to hit you with rockets. After that, the difficulty evens back out again in the cult's catacombs. Here you'll mostly be fighting two enemies, the Death Monks, slow bullet sponges who drain your health, and Deathfire Monks who fling fireballs at you. When I say bullet sponges, I mean it. With limited explosive ammunition, you're usually forced to stand there with your machine gun or pistols and fire round after round into these guys until they flop over. This was where the game's limited weapons really come into full focus. Most of my time in this episode was spent firing into swarms of these guys, only picking up when I could snatch up the odd rocket launcher. After wading through hordes of these things, you finally face off against the Cult Master himself, El Oscuro, in a rather unorthodox boss battle. You're first required to just wait and not die while he expends energy and then turns into an evil snake thing. You take off after him down a canyon before taking him down in the nest and winning the game. Or do you? Actually, in order to get the good ending, you have to track down all his creepy larva things, some of which are only accessible via a rocket jumping trick. This earns you the game's true ending. Rise of the Triad comes up with some various new ideas and also considerably updates the Wolf 3D engine. However, I found it somewhat more frustrating. The various grays and browns of the world cause the enemies to blend into the area, making it somewhat muddy and confusing and providing a sharp contrast to the bright colors of Wolfenstein 3D. The environmental hazards, while they added challenge, were extremely difficult to get bearings on with the limited view provided by the game. This view made the platforming bits harder than they should have been. However, the puzzle element was on full tilt, with some areas completely inaccessible unless you find a specific trigger or switch. This could be frustrating to some, but a welcome challenge to others. Overall, Rise of the Triad had a few missteps, but has a few elements seen in modern shooters that could be worth checking out, such as having to choose between limited weapons to carry. With the remake slated for release July 31st, 2013, now is as good a time as any to check out the original game and learn a bit about where it came from. However, next episode we'll be diving into a shooter that took place in a galaxy far, far away. But until then, my friends, as always, game on and take care.